The next thing I want to talk about is decentralized computing. How many people have heard of decentralized computing? Okay, so one person. So the concept of decentralized computing. So today, if you look at the internet is owned by no one, right? No one kind of owns the internet. But there are a bunch of companies that own properties on the internet, right? So Google.com is owned by Google Corporation, and all the data and information on the site is owned by them. If you look at the telecom networks, the 3G that you use on your phone, and the wireless, the Wi-Fi nodes, those are all owned by these telecom providers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. But the idea of decentralized computing is a world where the internet and all these properties are no longer centralized and owned. It's a world where on our mobile devices, we use Bluetooth to create a mesh network. So everyone right now has Bluetooth on their phone. We can create a mesh network and communicate over our phones, our Bluetooth over our phones, which creates a mesh network, and now no one owns that. No one can control it. The government can no longer block us, and we become an extension. Our phones become an extension of the actual internet. Our phones become our own routers. Okay, so that's the first level of decentralized computing, which is mesh networks. The second level is called the blockchain. I think more people have heard of the blockchain. Blockchain, one person, two people, okay. So the blockchain is amazing. It is amazing, okay? I think so, at least. So this is the way the blockchain works. Right now, if you want to transfer money, you have to do it through the banking network, right? So I got to go through the banking networks to transfer money. I've got to do first thing I have to do, if it's international, it takes a bunch of time. I have to pay transaction fees for the transfer. Then I have to pay foreign exchange fees. Right? So it's not easy to transact, especially globally. What Bitcoin and what all these cryptocurrency, digital currencies do is they leverage the blockchain. All the blockchain is a simple way for anonymous global payments that's routed on the internet. So you run over the internet as opposed to running over banking networks. So no longer do I have to leverage the Visa credit card network or the MasterCard network or banking networks, ACH and all that stuff. You don't need to do that. You just use cryptocurrency. So let me kind of give you guys a sense of, let me give a question.
Yeah, but how do you think that like services like Venmo will affect the adaptation of cryptocurrencies?
Okay, so Venmo is a peer-to-peer payments on your phone, but that's actually done with US dollars. So it's a normal currency, it's just doing peer-to-peer payments, which is very different from what Bitcoin does and all these cryptocurrencies. These cryptocurrencies are used for anonymous payments, as opposed to payments to people you know. Secondly, a cryptocurrency is used a lot for international payments, which on Venmo is very difficult to do because you still have to deal with foreign exchange problems. So blockchain, what it is, it's basically, at the very, very simple level, it's a ledger. A ledger, those of you who took accounting will know this, it's basically just like, let's say person X wants to pay person Y and wants to pay person Z. The blockchain basically lists X paid Y, Z dollars, and then Y paid A, whatever, B dollars. And it just kind of lists these transactions. And the only thing I need to know to make a payment is I only need to know your public key. You have a private key which gives you access to your own wallet, your Bitcoin wallet, which is where payments are. But all I need is your public key. And if I know your public key, then I can make a payment to you without knowing anything about you, just your public key. So it's a pretty big innovation, and it's hard to absorb. It's very hard to explain in a small amount of time. But just think of a world where you have, I'm just going to give you an example of like a purely decentralized computing scenario. So everyone knows the Google car. Like it's a driverless car, it's autonomous, it's making decisions on our behalf, right? So the Google driverless car is driving. Now let's look at a network of Google driverless cars all together that are driving and communicating together, right? So I'm going up, and there's no need for traffic lights anymore. There's no concept of traffic lights because these cars are speaking together. And they can go really fast at any intersection, and they can go, because they know that this car is going to come at this, and they know when the car is going to come up, and they have all these sensors. Now, let's say I'm in one car, and I'm in a rush. I have some sort of emergency, whatever it is. I'm late to a meeting. I need to get in front of that car, and I need to get a permit from that car to let me move ahead of it. So then I now ping the car and say, give me your public key. So it's a Bitcoin. They give me their public key. I can now transact. I don't need to know who they are. It's an anonymous payment. I can now pay that person micro payments. You can pay 10 to the negative $20. 10 to the negative 20, so 0.019 times 1. You can pay that small amount of money. So then you can get in front of that car. Right? So imagine how amazing that is. Now you can do these payments that you could never have done. Imagine how would you pay someone today? How would you pay another car? You'd have to stop your car, either pay them cash. To pay them by card, they have to have Square, and you pay them by card, and they now know who you are. Imagine how efficient that is. So the moral of the story is that payments, cryptocurrency, is not replacing cash and money the way we think of it. It is revolutionizing the way we think of payments, right? So in the 90s, when email was growing, I don't know if you guys remember. So in the 90s, there was the whole Hotmail thing, and like Hotmail was growing, and they had that line item under Hotmail that allowed them to skyrocket. And everyone's like, okay, email is going to replace mail. That's what everyone is saying. Oh my God, email is going to replace mail. We all know today that we use email in ways we would never use mail. If you look at every email you receive, a lot of the times, would you have sent physical mail for that same email? You wouldn't. So email has completely changed the way we think of mail. The same way cryptocurrency is going to change the way we think of payments. It's not going to be, oh, we're just going to replace payments we do today with cryptocurrency. Another example of leveraging the internet is in the 90s, we used, what is the internet, right? It's like, okay, I'm sending you a message. I'm sending you some piece of information. We take that information and we put it into packets. That packets are then routed over the internet and arrive to you. In the 90s, this guy was trying to speak to his girlfriend, I think in Taiwan, and he was in the US, and he was like, okay, cool. Why can't I just take voice into packets, and send voice over the internet, voice over IP? And I can now speak over the internet networks as opposed to speaking over telephone networks, which is very expensive. I can now do calls for free. And now we have Viber and all these services that allows you to do calls over the internet, and they're basically voice over IP. Skype is, of course, the biggest company that does this. But there's a lot of big companies. Viber is a pretty large company that does this. So this is what Bitcoin and digital cryptocurrency is about.